Presenters has the topic a comparison of three dual language frameworks from United States, Middle East, and Europe. We have three presenters: Roslyn Billy from Des Moines Public Schools, Pablo Ortega from Des Moines. That's right, how you say it, right? Des Moines Public Schools, and special online participation from Carmen Medina, Higher Technology College, UAE. Okay, so Pablo. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudio. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for having us today here at TESOL 2019. As Claudio had announced, we're going to talk about dual language today, a combined framework for implementation. I'm here, Pablo Ortega, along with my colleague, Dr. Roslyn Billy. Dr. Carmen Medina is pre-recorded on our presentations. And so why don't we go ahead and get started. The first two rows have our PowerPoint presentation as well as a copy of our framework. Thank you. So as I mentioned before, Dr. Roslyn Billy is ELL and World Languages Coordinator for the Des Moines Public Schools. I have the pleasure of working with her in that school district. I'm the ELL Program Director for the Des Moines Public Schools. For your information, we serve 7,500 English language learners. In other words, students that qualify for English learning services. That's about 21 to 22% of our entire school district are comprised of students that don't have English as a first language. And then Dr. Carmen Medina, Foundations Program Coordinator for the Higher Colleges of Technology in Dubai, and she'll be joining us via embedded sound on a PowerPoint slides.
Hi, I'm Dr. Roslyn Billy, and I'm going to start playing some of the audio so you can hear on the embedded slides.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Carmen Medina. I'm the Foundations Program Coordinator at the Higher Colleges of Technology in Dubai. I'm very sorry I could not be with you there today.
So we start off by asking the question, why dual language?
Why dual language? As educators of English language learners, we appreciate the multiple benefits of multilingualism: heightened cultural understanding, greater metalinguistic awareness, increased cognition, and even potential delay in the onset of dementia. Research also supports the claim that dual language programming promotes academic achievement for ELLs, as well as native English-speaking groups enrolled in dual language programs.
What are the latest trends and practices in the field of dual language? Currently, there are two dual language program models that you're probably most likely familiar with: the two-way model and the one-way model. The two-way model is consistent of participants being half ELL of the population is ELL, and the other half of the population are non-ELLs. And when we're referring to the one-way model, we have ELLs who happen to have the same language in that model. We also will have maybe English speakers that have the same culture and background, or we may just have English speakers that want to be immersed completely in the target language that's being taught. Dual language and bilingual education at times are interchangeably used. There is a difference between the two. Dual language is known as one of the acceptable approaches to, effective approaches to gaining language proficiency and literacy in English and the partner language. Bilingual education is the umbrella that's used within the terms of using many different languages for instructional use. So as you can see, there is a difference, but sometimes there is interchangeableness between the two. The models that you're also familiar with is the 90-10 model. The 90-10 model is 90% of the time the instruction is in the target language being taught, and then 10% of the instruction being in the native language being English. For example, 90% of the day of instruction could be in Spanish, and the other 10% of the day could be in English. No, the target language, Spanish would be the target language. So the target language would be whatever it is that you're trying to show mastery or proficiency in. Now, there are some benefits and there are some limitations to this model. Primarily, this model is used in the K-5 sector. And as you already know, Noam Chomsky and Krushin says that we have a language acquisition device, otherwise known as universal grammar, that part of the brain that processes language very quickly, primarily from birth to age 5, 6, or 7. We can master about 5 or 6 languages at a time. So primarily using this during those primary years makes it more adaptable for students to master that target language, be it Spanish, French, German, whatever the language might be, and then still master literacy with the 10% because they have the active language acquisition device. Now, there are some limitations to the model. Again, the limitation to this model is the fact that it's only primarily used in the K-5 setting. It's not something that is recommendedly or commonly used in the secondary setting, in middle school or high school. When they usually get to middle school or high school, this is where world languages step in and the courses start to take place of that target language in order to show mastery or proficiency in that language.
So a model that many of you might be familiar with is the 50-50 model. 50-50 meaning in terms of the instruction, the students are receiving 50% of their instruction in the target language. Pick your favorite in terms of world languages that a school district might focus on. And then the other 50% of their instruction will be received in the dominant language of that particular setting. So for us in Des Moines, the dominant language is English. And so 50% of the instruction would occur in that language. But the other thing that 50-50 refers to, as Rosalind had mentioned earlier, is that 50% of your student body within that program has English as their L1 and only English, native speakers as they're sometimes referred to. But then the other 50% are students, who English is not their first language. They may be coming from a second language, and our hope is that that second language is the target language that the school district has chosen for that particular program. The benefits to this is that obviously the idea of diversity in thought for those students is huge in terms of being able to offer them that in the classroom setting. The other thing that's important for our students is, especially in a state like Iowa, where we do a lot of trading with global partners, especially in the Latin American world, we're preparing our students at a young age to be able to take those opportunities, whether it be in sales, whether it be trading, those sorts of things in Latin American countries, an opportunity that otherwise they may not have actually received through our school district. So that's the plus side of 50-50. In terms of the limitations for the 50-50 model, that ratio, 50-50, might be easy to pull off in terms of 50% students who are native English speakers and 50% who are another target language. But when you're easy to pull off in a major urban center, but when you're talking about a rural state like Iowa, those numbers really are a little scant. And so you have to work really hard as a school district, not only to prepare the students to be successful, both the language dominant students as well as the English learners, but you also have to prepare those families, because let's call it for what it is. When kids are younger and they're put in a new situation like this, sometimes those social emotional needs are not being met, and that could drive the student away from the program. So we want to work really hard to make sure that the families are involved with not only the student's schooling, but also attending to that student's social emotional needs.
Now we'll take a look at the global perspective of dual language and bilingual education.
The Council of Europe was founded in the aftermath of the Second World War in The Hague on May 10, 1948, and is Europe's oldest political organization. The Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, the CEFR, is a guideline used to describe achievements of learners in foreign languages across Europe and increasingly in other countries. It was published in 2001 by the Language Policy Division of the Council of Europe as part of the Language Learning for European Citizenship research project that took place between 1989 and 1996. Its main aim is to provide a method of learning, teaching, and assessing, which applies to all languages in Europe. There are 6 different levels: A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, and C2. In other words, from beginners to mastery, which have become accepted as the European standard for grading an individual's language proficiency. In 2018, The Council of Europe published the companion volume to update the existing CEFR with new descriptors, namely mediation as a new skill. The European plurilingual language learning model is based on content language and integrated learning. We call it CLIL. CLIL is an approach or method which integrates the teaching of content from a curriculum subject with the teaching of non-native language. It's considered increasingly important in our global society because knowledge of another language helps learners to develop skills in their first language and also helps them to develop skills to communicate ideas about science, arts, and technologies to people around the world. In a CLIL classroom, the curricular subject and new language skills are taught together. Thinking and learning skills are integrated too. CLIL teachers can be subject teachers, language teachers, or classroom assistants. Different teachers have different goals that can be achieved through a high degree of cooperation amongst them. Language teachers need to learn more about subject content, and subject teachers need to learn more about the language needed to teach their subjects. CLIL has 4 basic components, usually called the 4 C's. Content, in other words, the subject matter; communication, the language that is used; cognition, thinking; and culture, awareness of the self and otherness, to build on the synergies of integrating learning, the content and cognition, with the language learning, in other words, communication and culture. It aims to unite learning theories, language learning theories, and intercultural understanding.
Those of you who just joined us, we do have handouts on the front seat.
Education policies in Spain are centralized in the Ministry of Education. However, each autonomous region can adapt the central framework to its specific characteristics. This relative freedom of action has given way to notable differences amongst the bilingual education models which each region has chosen. It has also produced differences in the English skills that teachers require in order to participate in the bilingual programs. In Asturias, where more students study English than in any other region, 52.3% in elementary school and 33.7% in high school, teachers only need to have an intermediate level, B2. The same is true in Andalusia, where 30.5% of elementary school students and 28.6% of high school students study in English. In Madrid, however, where 43.8% of primary school students and 27.6% of secondary school students take classes in English, teachers must have an advanced level of English, in other words, C1. In Andalusia, the bilingual model is very popular with the administration. In 2018, 235 public schools provide bilingual education in the province of Seville alone. More specifically, during the 2018-2019 academic school year, 5 primary schools and 5 secondary schools were incorporated to the previous list of bilingual Spanish-English schools. The expansion of the network of bilingual centers is one of the proposals of the Strategic Plan for the Development of Languages in Andalusia, Horizon 2020, which also includes the gradual extension of compulsory learning of 2 foreign languages up to secondary education, the improvement in training of teachers, and the advancement of the study of foreign language to the second cycle of preschool, that is, 0 to 6 years. However, as mentioned before, the program has many detractors because of the language level of the teachers and the relative neglect in enforcing the CLIL model, which many teachers are not happy with either. In the Middle East, 2 major factors have influenced the choice of English for the bilingual model: A, being under British influence, and B, the oil boom, which brought about the influx of immigrants who used English as a lingua franca. Initially, this choice was practical and covered a purpose, but with the onset of nationalization, several Middle Eastern countries are beginning to witness a disinterest on behalf of English speakers, who claim that Arabic is being weakened mainly because of how it is perceived and feel English poses a threat. Nowadays, Arabic is considered, by some nationals, less modern, so speakers are less emotionally attached and thus less willing to learn it. Arabic is looked upon in terms of identity, tradition, religion, culture, and localism, while English is identified with internationalism, modernity, economy, and business. Dubai in particular offers a kaleidoscope of international and national schools. Government schools offer the UAE national curriculum, where all subjects are taught in Arabic, with the exception of English. Most of the international schools, American, British, French, German, Indian, to name a few, either offer the curriculum in English or have English as a priority subject. This veritable ragbag of K-12 education means that when students arrive to university, the levels they bring can vary from A1 to C1, although the Ministry of Education only this year is raising the entrance level of English, thus eliminating the Foundations program in most universities.
Now that brings us to our framework. I'm going to remove the PowerPoint so I can bring up the framework in our Word document so you can better see it.
And as a reminder, if you're sitting towards the back of the room, there are handouts in the first 2 rows.
Okay. As mentioned before, as you progress into the secondary level, most of the programs extend in middle school and secondary years into the world language courses in order to show mastery of the target language. What we have, all 3 of us have done, is put together a combined framework of both the 90-10 model, the 50-50 model, and also full immersion at various grade level points at various times in the schooling process. Now, referring back to Chomsky and Krushen, we know that we have a active language acquisition device in the primary years. And what our goal of this model is to do is to have complete CALP, which is cognitive academic language proficiency, by the end of 12th grade. We can achieve that even before that with this model. So in the primary grades, K to 2nd, we would focus on using the 90-10 model because of the fact that we have an active language acquisition device and that these students will be more amped and ready to be absorb and take in as many language as possible. So whatever target language you choose within this framework, you will still be able to adapt and have the students take in that language. Now, when students reach the grades 3 through 5, which primarily is testing grades, mostly across the United States and also other countries use to have national tests at this grade level, you will switch to the 50-50 model. The rationale behind this is that they begin to code switch. They're code switching naturally now because they've been exposed so much into the 90-10 model. Now they can easily code switch. And then at the testing levels, it is now our recommendation to be tested in the target language. So for example, most publishers now have target language. For example, if we're using Spanish, they can be tested in Spanish for the statewide assessment, as long as also in the native language of English. They can be tested in both, and here you will see the progress. Most dual language programs fail at this point because they tend to just solely test in English and not the target language, and you cannot see the progression. So here at this level, we recommend testing in both languages to see the progression so that the model can continue. In grades 6 through 8th, we remain in the 50-50 model, hence why usually at the secondary we know that we start getting into language courses. Now according to ACFL, we know that we have to have a certain amount of ACFL, the American Council for Foreign Language Teachers. They have a recommendation of how many hours of exposure of the language you should be in for mastery. When you start to have world language courses for 50-minute periods, that's not going to happen. So if we were to continue a 50-50 model at this level, the rationale behind this is, 1, we know that academic language identity is tied to language spoken. According to Gonzalez, we know that middle schoolers start to transition and go in through all social and emotional learning points in their life. And we also have to think about Erickson's theory of 8 stages of development here, so then that way the students can then easily identify to what language of choice they want to at this point. Moving into 9th grade, they will then continue again at a 50-50 model. The rationale behind that is, again, they're code switching again. Also, it's a testing grade, and they are also transitioning again. Here you have Erickson's stages, 8 stages of adolescence development going on. They are still transitioning into a high school setting. Now, here's your immersion. 10th grade to 11th grade, we are suggesting here that you move for the first half of the semester from a 90-10 model into a full immersion. There, they will have full immersion into the language, which will lead to full academic language proficiency, full CALP at this time. When you talk about 12th grade, as you can see, we will continue the full immersion, but degressed in 50-50. Here's the rationale behind that. High school students were preparing for a career and readiness. When you have these students reaching 12th grade, they have to determine whether they want to attend maybe university in their native language of English or maybe the target language. So their brain needs to be prepared in order to make that switch. So hence why we start again at a full immersion and then slowly transition into a 50-50 model. So these students are prepared to either go into the workforce in their native language here in the United States or go into the workforce overseas. So they're because by this time they will have complete CALP. This is a model that we're proposing to be used in various different school districts across the United States.
Thank you, Dr. Billy. Are there any questions regarding the framework, regarding our PowerPoint presentation? Yes, ma'am. Oh. The question was, is our framework currently being practiced? Again, we're from the Des Moines Public Schools. We are in the process of instituting this framework in the 2021 school year. And so laying down the groundwork, we've identified a site. We're working with that building's principal and leadership team. So we fully expect to have that in place the 2021 school year.
Hello?
Good question. Thank you.
If there are other questions?
Any other questions?
We want to record them onto the stream, so. Here you are.
Yes, sir.
I'm Ibrahim from West Africa. So I would like to know if there is any durability of, in terms of collaboration, okay, so that we can accept these, tools in my country. So that's my question.
I think so. I think Dr. Billy had mentioned earlier that this is a model that we're not only using locally at Des Moines, but also wanting to have more of a national impact. But there really is no barrier to us working with international partners as well, and we'd be happy to collaborate with you.
And actually, that is our goal. We want this framework to not just be limited to the United States, but to be a global framework that can be used outside with various different languages.
Good question.
Yeah, we're recording this.
How can we collaborate with you in terms of different, I'm the head of Kofi Annan English department in Guinea, in West Africa. Okay, as we live in French-speaking country, so people are moving now to English language because of the needs, the development of, the English-speaking countries. Most of the times, the documents that we receive in the different field of studies, they spend 2 years in the English-speaking countries before being translated in French language, right? So we cannot be updated at all if you don't speak English. So the parents, the schools, new policies now is to reinforce, okay, our students' levels in terms of language, English language, okay? So I'm really interested in further partnership with you, if it is possible, so that your product can be very well known in my country. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And as you can see, our contact information is on the screen there, and we do respond to our emails.
Yeah, we do. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
My stuff out your way. I'm sorry.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Rosalind Beatty and Pablo Ortega from Des Moines Public Schools, and thank you, Dr. Carmen Medina, for her participation, her pre-recorded participation. Dr. Carmen Medina from Higher Technology College, UAE. Thank you. UAE. Yes, that's it. Dubai. Yes, yes. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now, next we have Ms. Minnie Lee, yes, with a digital multimodal writing in ESL classes, right? Okay, so I'll help you set up. Do you have a space there? With digital multimodal writing in ESL classes.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. So in this session, I will be talking about digital multimodal writing in ESL classes. So first of all, I should say this is really a hot topic recently. As you can see, there are a lot of journals who have already published some, say special issues on multimodality or multimodal writing, right? So you can see this is what you really want to delve into. Why multimodal, right? So in the 21st century social and cultural contexts, meanings are more and more represented multimodally. So here, multimodalities means the visual, audio, gestural, spatial, and linguistic means of creating the meaning, okay? Then now we know the paradigm shift in terms of the writing representation moves from the logic of the page to the logic of the screen, which coincides the visual turn in writing studies. So we see texts as visuals, and we treat images as texts. So especially nowadays, CMC technologies have impacted the way we write, the genres we create, the authoric identities we assume, and the forms of our finished products, and the ways we engage with the readers, right? Especially in the ESL writing classes, students draw on digital technologies and are engaged in multimodal writing projects, such as blogging, digital storytelling, and video making, in which they orchestrated various semiotic resources, such as they use texts, images, sound, video, and hypertext to create digital products. Here are some more about the rationale, okay? So because now in the digital age, the text-based communication cannot adequately support students writing in the rhetorical situations they experience. So that is one of the reasons why we want to implement the multimodal writing in our classes. Also, because of the development of CMC technologies, digital multimodal writing becomes a significant tool for, activity for us, because it offers the rich opportunities for learners to deploy multiple resources to make meaning, construct knowledge, as well as express self-identity. Some benefits already discussed in previous, the current body of literature. For instance, the digital multimodal writing fosters learner autonomy. It also gives a real-world motivation to develop language and literacy skills. Meanwhile, it opens up new identities for second language learners. For instance, it can enhance their self-esteem. Also, it showcases the knowledge of their heritage, culture, and language. So, some students even demonstrated their investment change. Previously, they actually played a role as a very resistant writer, but now with the digital technology, the digital creative and multimodal writing, they feel like they are highly motivated, and they become an active composer. Right? So also, they actually changed from the exam-oriented writer to the multimodal designer. Okay. Meanwhile, we have already identified some, have already discovered a positive impact on the writing and language development, such as the vocabulary development, increased language production, as well as the better use of language writing conventions. So now you know that is quite beneficial for our students. I want to show you 3 representative cases so that for you to understand better how multimodal digital writing can be implemented in your classes. Okay, first of all, I want to show this case. This case is about multimodal presentation. Okay, so this is conducted by Smith and her colleagues. Okay, so this study was conducted in a secondary ESL context in the United States. The participants were 8th graders. Okay, they were required to complete a task called My Hero. Okay, so in this multimodal project, the students created the multimodal project using PowerPoint slides or Prezi slides, to present his or her own hero. Okay, so for instance, the students first of all need to record the interview with their hero, and then they created the multimodal presentation that introduces the hero first, then synthesize the interview, and meanwhile they need to include the personal reflections. Okay, so here is what they found. First of all, they noticed that the visuals, the images are so important because it scaffolded the students' thinking as well as learning. Like this one, the students talked about her mother, right? So she reflected on her mother's experience fleeing from her own country. So on the cover page of the PowerPoint slides, she actually included 6 images here. So you can see these 6 images actually worked as a structural blueprint to the writing in the following slides. Okay. Also, students are highly engaged in the multimodal code meshing process. Here, code meshing process refers to, some, important, procedures such as image design, text revision, voice record, and audio remix. Okay, there are a lot of activities that are related to how to code mesh all these, different, resources. And also, the students learned to express themselves through multiple modes in a digital environment. Moreover, students use the heritage language for different purposes. For example, they use heritage language, for example, Spanish, search information, translate to clarify the content, and also engage with potential readers and express their own identity. Here comes the second case. Now you can see the study reported the, digital storytelling. So this study was conducted in a different context. It was conducted in English as a second language, tertiary, EAP class. So that is to say, students work on English for academic purposes, So for this specific study, the students need to work on the digital writing, digital storytelling, okay? That is to say, students need to focus on the personal experience that contained a major turning point in a student's lives. Okay, so the students tried to, develop a metacognitive and understanding of the choices they make for expressing their voices through different modes. Okay, as you can see here, I will show you very say briefly about this study, say Dr. Bloch conducted. This is one example actually that is available freely online. So you can
I was blessed by getting a scholarship to continue my graduate study, but the question was where I should go. The USA? I was a little worried. What happened on September 11, 2001 had made the world focus on Islam and judge Islam and Muslim instead of looking at the criminal as person. Many people around the world don't know that Islam is a religion of peace, which teaches Muslims how to respect others and deal with others morally, and how Islam's law is absolutely against hurting innocents. So, Muslims' life in non-Islamic country has become not as easy as before. I lived my whole life in an Islamic country, and I was always surrounded by Muslims. So I did not have any idea what the life in other places was like. But when I decided to come to the USA, hundreds of questions popped into my head, and I was really exhausted answering them. Was it easy to live in the USA with my religion? Is it safe to be a Muslim in this country, particularly after 9/11? Did people know how beautiful is Islam? And how all Muslims are proud of their religion? So I followed a new strategy. I would not think of those questions and would wait until I found the answer when I started my life there. As soon as I got on the airplane, my way of life started to change. I started to ask myself, is the food they are serving Islamic? Is there any alcohol in the beverages? Islam considers alcohol to be harmful and forbidden as well. In addition, Muslims should eat meats which is slaughtered by Islamic way, and we also cannot eat pork. When I reached the final destination, and I was officially in the USA, I thought there were dozens of FBI agents lurking and following my steps, and every moment I made. I thought people here would give me the evil eye every time I went outside my apartment. What I had heard from media is that after 9/11, many people in America are against practicing Islam, and that Muslims there live in a very hostile environment. This was a rumor. Everybody have been trying to convince me to change my decision to go to the USA. When I was looking for an apartment, I thought everybody would think twice before letting me rent an apartment. I thought my Islamic clothes would stand like a barrier between me and the American community, would make them refuse even talk to me. The things that bothered me the most, I figured out, was that many Americans think that Islam treats Muslims women unfairly and oppresses women.
Okay, so as you can see here, the student tried to voice, say in this digital, say storytelling project, because as you can see, she not only talked about her own experience that, say gave the narration, something like that, and she also so let us know better, how she believes, how to, say how it means, so what it means to be a Muslim, right? Especially the Muslim woman. And meanwhile, it can be quite, so persuasive as well, because we are thinking about the religious, say tolerance, something like that. So in this study, now, so digital storytelling can definitely fit the goals of our academic writing classes as well, because it can be nicely, combined with the three traditional writing genres, such as narrative, exposition, and argumentation, right? And the next one, the case 3, is about video documentary. This is very good one because this was conducted in an ESP context, so English for Specific Purposes context in Hong Kong. So all the students actually were say majors in science. Okay, so their writing task was to collaboratively work on digital video project that is a scientific documentary. So this is what the students did. They conducted a scientific inquiry first, then they collected and analyzed their data. Then they have the script, then continued to perform, that is to record this, say documentary. And lastly, they share the final product on the YouTube. Okay, so basically their findings are like this. The students were super motivated to actually produce this, report. This is a news report. So as you can see, that was quite engaging, So at this moment, the students played the role of not only a scientist, but also the news reporter. So once again, this gives us, a better perspective on how digital multimodal writing can afford students in terms of a role and identity. Okay. So another one. We believe that the students actually are creative a lot because they try to remix, say a lot of resources, such as here, the different types of remix were evident, such as chunking, such as layering, blending, intercultural blending. Right. So once again, these are the process of how the students take advantage of those different resources across different modalities. So students combined a range of modes to develop an effective rhetorical hook and appropriate, and also they demonstrated a discursive identity here, being a scientist as well as being a reporter, right? So that the audience are quite attracted. So what kind of technologies do you want to consider? Of course, there are a lot of digital technologies you can use, such as Glogster, EdgeSub, WeVideo, VoiceThread, Powtoon, Vyond, Storybird, Mix, and Weebly. So these are actually very effective tools you can use in order to implement digital multimodal writing in your classes. Here, I actually want to show you some of them. I know time is limited, but here I want to at least focus on two here. One is Storybird. I love it a lot because actually it can be used in really different, diverse contexts. In my class, I even use that in my linguistics class. Students did a lot of good projects and bear their even granddaughter in mind and created a very good story, that help say the younger generation learn about linguistics, that's very fun. So, but here I will focus on the ELCL class, okay? For example, you can definitely use it in your K-12 setting and try to enhance the students' literacy skills, right? So, for instance, if I go to that, say, Storybird website, I can see a lot of samples. So, here's one of the projects. So you can take a look at that. They actually needed to write a very creative piece here. So see? So from this project, you can see the students actually practice the, say, digital literacy skills, because for this one, it specifically focuses on the subjunctive mood, the really practice the grammar a little bit, right? So they talked about the imaginary situations, right? And then, here comes the, say, combination of the language structures and the writing. Okay, very creative writing. Actually, you can see a lot of, say, videos on YouTube how to use digital story. I don't want to, say, spend much time on this. Then the second one I want to introduce is Glogster. Glogster is an interactive multimedia poster. This is also very helpful for the ESL students because it gives you the chance to post your pictures, have the texts, include the videos, as well as the hyperlinks, right? So let us take a look. Here is one example. So as you can see here, this is just like a poster, right? But that is quite interactive because you can see the topic, of course, talking about the evolution of women's roles, right? So actually, I believe this would be a good chance for your students to connect with the, say, contents, right? So it can definitely be used in such as social studies or history classes, right? So for example, the students, delve into this, the changes and evolutions of women's roles, by not only using texts, they use, he or she use really powerful images here, right? And also included YouTube links here. So that is to say, you can include the video in the poster and as well as some hyperlinks. So it takes the audience to see more, the sources they might find interesting, right? So the next one is Round. I don't know whether you are familiar with Powtoon. Seems like everybody knows Powtoon, but this one is a little bit different because it gives you even more characteristics. You can have really, really very fun characters, a lot of gestures. You can have your animated, say, figures do exactly as what you do and you want them to do. So I would think this is very helpful. Different from the traditional, video creator, this animated, say, video creator always, say, attract and appeals to more audience, So you can try this, and I know there is, the bad thing is that it is not for free, not like the original. I mean, the first two I mentioned, the digital story and the Glogster actually are free, but this one you need to, say, pay. But actually, you can do the, trial version, for free, and see whether it will work for your student population. And the next one is really very interesting because the Edgy sub gives you a chance to let students to add the subtitle to whatever videos they're interested in, So for example, the students have the, say, different first language. If there is a certain movie in the first language that is quite popular, they want to, say, of course, introduce it to the English speakers, right? Then, of course, they can use Edgy sub to add the subtitles, So that would be very fun because it gives them the chance to introduce their culture, meanwhile, of course, practice the language skills. Okay. Lastly, I want to address the pedagogical recommendations. Here, I want to focus on task design and assessment. So, for instance, here, I want to highlight we actually allow students to, of course, learn to write, but meanwhile, we want to emphasize writing to learn as well, right? So we want the students to say connect to their content areas. So they learn by writing, but meanwhile, say you write to learn. Right? And secondly, we want to use a lot of authentic tasks. That is to say, we want to have the real-world motivations for students. For example, you can develop a travel brochure, say, for example, using Glogster, right? Introduce a certain tourist attraction, and then use Gluster to show those different activities you can do, the good say sites you want to explore, whatever interesting points you can include in this interactive poster. Also, you can have your students publish a newspaper article by using Wix, for example. It's actually a good say blogging website now. And also, you can have students create an ebook like a digital storyboard, right? You use digital storyboard. You use this storyboard to create your digital stories. And also have students create a video on science report. So here we can use WeVideo. So WeVideo, by the way, is a good, collaborative video making tool. So that is good. Is that you can not only individually work on your video, but also collaborate with others, So basically, you can see these genres will emerge: digital storytelling, digital documentary, and fan subbing. Okay. Lastly, addressing assessment, we want to say, when we address, multimodal writing, we should really not just focus on the traditional aspects of writing. We need to focus also on the aesthetics of the design, including coordination of texts, images, and sounds. Right? So also here we actually have some good rubrics for you to follow. For example, we have the rubric like this by Hong and the colleagues. They developed a rubric guided by the 5 design modes. Linguistic mode, visual mode, gestural mode, auditory mode, and spatial mode. They got a lot of insights from New London groups. Thought. And the last one, we should definitely bear our students in mind, have them try to create a certain, assessment tools for themselves. That is to say, we can use this assessment for learning. That is to say, for example, we have them think about what specific criteria they want to include. Since they have already decided, I want to include this, I want to include that, then during they have this specific writing process, they really pay much attention to all these specific criteria. So that would be very helpful. So I believe this could be a scaffolding process for them as well. Okay. Thank you very much. So here are my references. Thank you. I would be happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lee. And when you showed the storyboard,
okay, sure.
And students they used some pictures. Okay, the students used some pictures. How do they work with the pictures? Are they Creative Commons pictures? The students design the pictures. Where do the students get the pictures?
Yeah, let me show you. Actually, the question is about how to get these pictures. Very fun and very engaging pictures. Actually, all these pictures are archived in a digital storyboard website. So let me show you. If you go to the website, and then you can see clearly the right page, and then you have picture book for you. So you have the specific, place for you to, see what specific pictures are there. If we have time, do we have time? Then I can show you a very short video. We have time? Okay, good. Okay, that answers your question. So you can
It
see
does.
you actually have a lot of pictures to choose from, and also you even get a chance to create the poems because a lot of lexicons can be selected for you for students to create a poem. Thank you for your question.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. This is a very interesting
Thank you.
presentation. How long does it take the students to come up with the concept for the story and to, put it out there? And how about language work? Is there any language work associated with it?
Could you speak a little bit louder?
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
How long does it take for the students to create the concept of the story? And is there any language work associated with it?
Actually, when I worked with the students, most of the students try to figure it out themselves. Actually, I introduced this to them, so seems like they are digital natives. Actually, really got very fluent in using these technologies. Usually, I give them the chance to finish it within 2 weeks. So they figure out how to use the technology first, then they think about the topics, what would be, kind of like cater to their own interest, and then they kind of like pre-plan for it for a couple of days, and then begin on learning how to actually, put all these thoughts into this project, So I do think that it requires like the, basic, skills, but and language skills as well, but it's always good for you to try because you can always cater, to different proficiency levels, right? So you can have students create like very fun, short story, but only like for one sentence, for one picture, that's good enough, right? But for advanced level, of course, you can even have, paragraph to include it for that picture. Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks.
Oh yeah. Do your students keep portfolios?
We have another question. Do students keep portfolios?
Do the students keep any online portfolios of their work?
Actually, from my experience, I know it should be very helpful, but I just didn't get a chance to do that in my own classes. So that is an excellent question. We may want to, explore it, in the future classes.
They could use Wix as a portal.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mimi Lee, for bringing digital multimodal writing in ESL classes. Dr. Lee is from the Texas A&M University, Commerce, USA. And thank you all for participating in our hot topic session. This is the end of our session. Thank you.